All right, hello and welcome to another video. Just a different one than usual. I always call it the Daily Muppet, but it's not exactly the Daily Muppet. All these different ones here, but I've got a special guest. This is Nas, also known as Bearded Genius on X or Twitter, and I think many of you may know him for his book as well, Inshallah United. Right? That's your book to fame.
Uh, It is. It is. You're very good with your pronunciations in terms of like even like you don't do the American Muslim. You go
Oh
proper
yeah.
Muslim.
Muslim, yeah.
Yeah.
I try, I've gotten so much shit over the years for my pronunciation of names, but I really do try. It's just I have a hard time remembering all the different dialects, but certain things I feel like I've heard enough to get
Yeah.
right. So hopefully I do well there. I do have to say before we start that I said to you when we came into this thing, no beard, no beard.
I know. I know.
What's going on?
Just a massive fraud. There's no beard. There's no genius. It's all a lie.
Fair enough.
Whereas
Well,
you,
yeah, I know. I'm working on it. It's not great. It's patchy. I think it'll be patchy for the rest of my life. I'm 33 years old. My hopes are fading every year that my beard is still not there, but I can do a pretty decent mustache. So I'm
yeah.
wondering. I don't know. It
Have you,
doesn't suit my face.
have you not thought about the old turkey getting just going to Turkey and getting those patches filled in?
Just right here, just a little bit. Yeah, maybe we'll see. Maybe I could find something, a different way. I've tried the roller and stuff, but it's not quite having the desired effect as of yet. So we're gonna do this a little bit differently, I think, because we wanted to do a video. You've kind of become a part of our little community, our little corner of United fans as well, and I was thinking, oh, we're gonna do a video. I'll ask you a bunch of questions, but you actually want to ask me a bunch of questions and get into that. I think that's where you wanted to go, right?
Yeah, yeah. I thought it'd be interesting because I think I'm pretty late to sort of your content and sort of understanding what you do. So
Sure.
I mean, I find it fascinating. I find the way that media evolves really fascinating as well. So, which kind of brings me to the first thing I wanted to ask you, really, because I was watching a video with Craig Hope, the Newcastle journalist, and
Mm,
he's obviously been out in East Asia with Newcastle, and
yes.
he's been covering Newcastle for years. And one thing that he said about this trip is he's never had the dialogue with the club that he had on that trip, and it really feels as if there's always been a wall between the club and the media, and he felt for the first time as if they'd kind of come together over that wall. And I think it's something that people don't always understand, that even journalists from the UK that have been following Manchester United for years, there's a different atmosphere on these
Mm.
tours, isn't there? Or do you get
Oh
that
yeah,
sense?
it's huge. It's hugely different on the tours. It's it is definitely where, and I can certainly say this from United's tour over in the States this time, being on that for a week and being around all the other journalists and all the names that everybody knows and follows all the time. It's very different. It's really a different world. I would certainly say on the tour you get, United staff being able to a degree, you might call it like let their guard down just to a degree to interact. It's not always been like that with United either, right? It's not always been that way. Certainly, I think it's been a lot different this season in particular, but it is true. I was telling people all summer, they were like, it's quiet, nobody's heard anything, there's no news. For a month, it's like silent, there's nothing happening. They get on the tour and suddenly the stories are flying. And it's just simply the natural kind of activity of proximity. They're in the same place, and the lines are open. There's you're just in the same spot. The staff aren't all sitting in Carrington. They're in the city. They're at the games. They're at the events. They're at the hotels. They're at the restaurants, and you just see them and you talk to them, and people are open. And it's a whole different experience for a lot of people. A lot of conversations, a lot of connections made, a lot of relationships formed and built, and bonds with random people, different staff, all of that happen on these tours. And when people are just in the same space, it's very different, I think, to what people think, like how these relationships work and where they start.
Yeah, and I mean, I find that so interesting because you'd you naturally assume that if there's particular journalists or people in the media who are finding things out about the club, that there'd be this natural kind of like tension between the club trying to withhold information because it doesn't jeopardize any deals or whatever, and the media
Yeah.
want to find that out. But there seems to be an acceptance of that, but also as long as it's done in the right way, respect.
Yeah, for sure. I think it's about they kind of know who's there and know that I think it's a trust relationship that goes both ways. Like we expect I think the club expect the people that they'll see that they'll interact with to treat fairly, to be fair in their coverage, to be reasonable in their coverage. And then it's like, yeah, you're doing your job, you're this and you're that. And and I think part of it comes to as well when you form personal relationships with people, journalists included, you would assume that they're going to be more fair in their coverage. Like you don't talk to somebody, you get to know them, become friendly with them. If you're turning around and ripping into them and being unfair in the treatment of them, that says a lot about you. And I think that the club and the people involved will know when that happens. And it's not good for you to do that either because you end up they know, and you can get cut out, of things and treated differently. And I'm curious if there was people who were not there, for instance, that had that kind of experience, or maybe not people who the club wanted to be there. I'm not sure that that's the case, but it is interesting in that respect. I don't think they're super guarded. There's always in these conversations things they don't want to say. They're not volunteering tons of information if you can't discover some things on your own. But at the same time, it's not like they're sitting there like not can't talk about anything, won't say anything, won't do anything. I think it's understood. It's better for the club as well to be maybe leading the narrative, the
Yeah,
discussion on these stories instead of the other way around and getting caught on them to say, well, yeah, that's happening. This is why, this is what we think, this is why we're going this way. And it just tends to have them, you know, see their position in the news better that way too. So I think it's a smart thing to maintain good relationships with journalists and with people and to be open. And at the end of the day, they're just people too. I mean, that's one of the biggest things you encounter on the tour and in person. The players, the staff, they're just people, like all of them. They're just people. And at the end of the day, they're just people. They want to have conversations. They're not doing anything like particularly scary or clandestine while you're sitting there talking to them. They're just ordinary guys working in a job as well. And that's all that matters.
yeah, but I mean, part of that is realizing that these are three-dimensional people, and it sounds daft to say it, but
Yeah.
uh, like for instance, I got the sense from what you said, for instance, about Luke Shaw, that there's a difference between knowing Luke Shaw through a television set or sort of like all the
Yeah.
data and everything you've got, and then just speaking to him and like looking him in the eyes and just getting a sense of how committed he is, how much he believes what he says, and I think that accounts for a lot. But I think because football fans are the way they are, and because they are so cynical about the media as well, they can kind of think, oh, well, you've met him, so you're gonna give him an easy ride. But it's not that. It's about realizing that these are human beings uh, with sort of like their own agency, really, isn't it? It's not just they're not just
Yes.
there as like assets.
Correct. Correct. Yeah, it's exactly that. Like it was really interesting looking in press conferences, in interviews with the players and seeing it in person and then seeing like a quote on Twitter and looking at the way people take it based on that quote online on paper versus what you see in person. And Luke Shaw, I think, was a good example of this because you take his interview and he talked about things like stragglers at the club and such. And you read the quote, and everybody's instant reaction online is, well, you're one of those stragglers. What you saying? Hypocritical, these types of things. And I get it. But when you see it in person, you would get the idea he probably feels he's been one of those people. And he's like, absolutely has been like, there's a lot of emotion in his feelings about having the injuries that he's had, having the difficulties that he's had, having those struggles. Like he's was very unhappy about those things. It's blatantly obvious. He's not sitting there like, oh well, who cares? I'm earning my money and I'm staying at the club and I'm at the club and I'm this and that. He is desperate to want to be successful at United and to turn the career back around. And you can tell he very much feels the more than probably anybody on the outside. That's the funny part. All the criticism he might get of it, understood, he feels worse about it probably than anyone. It's his own life, his own career, and everything that's happened. And you just get a different sense of it. And so you can say, well, that's fine. It doesn't mean you have to Shaw has to stay here forever, and it's a charity, and anybody who doesn't work out is we have to praise them forever. But I think it's different in how you view them in that respect, as more having the empathy for the situation that they're in. You can still say, well, that's fine, empathize with that. If it still doesn't work out, move on with your career and all that, and it's best for everybody involved. But you just do get that different perspective. I find it really hard to criticize in the same way that I might have in years past. I've been trying to work on it even myself for a long time when having those experiences up close and personal. Like you see things like as well, you got things like the executives like Jason Wilcox, like during the whole Ambumo deals like dragging on, and you get crazy things being said about Wilcox this and he's that and and all of these things. And you look at what actually is going on, and it's like it's just a human being doing his job, working, you know, working hard, and he's upfront. He's there at fan events. He's doing all sorts of stuff like that, and and you just get a very different impression of what is actually happening here, in the reality of it. So yeah, it's an intriguing kind of perspective that changes the way you view players, you view all of it, and certainly makes you step back just a little bit.
But it's also, I think it's also the case that people don't realize that players, it does get through to players what you're saying about them. So I think it would be a wise thing for United to advise any of the younger players, or any player really, to sort of stay away from social media as much as possible, and definitely not sort of like read all the replies and all the comments. However, it's kind of impossible to if there's a general sentiment, or there's a general joke, or there's a general meme. It's impossible to not be aware of that. And I've certainly experienced it in the past where I've kind of like I remember. I was doing a thing with Robbie Savage on the radio.
Okay.
So I went into the studio, and we were sort of having a chat on the radio, on air, and we were having a laugh. And then at the break, when we came back on the break, after the break, the presenter said, "Oh, and this is Bearded Genius off Twitter." And then he realised who I was, and said, "Oh, 2 years ago you took the piss out of me." And then and obviously that was slightly awkward and embarrassing, but it does make you realize that even if they're not looking to find out about themselves, they do find out. And I've experienced, and I'm sure you've experienced it as well, where once you even at our level, where we kind of like are known to a certain degree,
something,
yeah. People will like it. Some people like you, some people really dislike you, and you kind of learn to sort of ignore praise and sort of criticism to both of them equally. But then you will always get friends, or you will always get people who think that they're sort of like doing a good thing by saying, "Oh, have you seen what they've said about you?" But like, don't tell me. Like, I don't know.
Yeah.
It'll be the same with footballers as well.
Yeah, it's exactly that. It is really funny. Like as a Z tier celebrity, like someone with an online following, you know what I mean? And that's it. It's exactly like that. In the beginning, you start and you're like looking at comments and you're doing this and you're doing that, and then you go, oh, this isn't good. Like I don't like doing this. This starts make me feel really uncomfortable. So you tune it out. But it is exactly that. Even if you tune it out, people send you things. Do you see what this guy said? What this dickhead said about you? And it's like, well, cool that, they're not a nice person. They said these horrible things about me. I didn't need to see it. It doesn't actually help me to see it. I don't feel better about seeing it. And obviously you ramp that up to the scale of millions of people and the biggest football club in the world. And it's like, it gets crazy. And it's like, that's what happens to these players all the time. So whether they're searching it out or not, they have to deal with that. you know yeah, and that is an intriguing part of it.
Yeah, It's also it amuses me that people have kind of like labeled you as like an unofficial cheerleader of certain players.
Mm.
There's obviously Ugarte and there's
Yeah.
Harry Maguire,
Harry
and
Maguire, yeah.
it's funny, isn't it? Because I see that as less about them being your favourites or anything. It's more just a case of sort of like rallying against the undue criticism.
It's pretty much exactly that. Like I've got genuine football opinions on the players and things like that. But what tends to happen is when I see, like, when it started with Harry Maguire years ago, I thought it was unbelievably undeserved, and it got really bad, and it got really, really bad. And I thought, uh, for whatever reason, I'll just kind of be involved, in doing what I can, at least to support the player, to back it and things like that. Um, and yeah, and it's just really funny in that respect, because then that's exactly what happens. You get over criticized, you get so much heat, and all of these things happen, and then you just keep doing it, and you just keep going, and you just keep working on it, and you just keep trying, and to back the players, to try to push against some of the over criticism. And I'll keep doing it, and it doesn't bother me if people say I'm cheerleading this person or that person, but I think it's just wrong to let it go completely unchecked. Not that I have much influence in that respect, but I just don't like it, because I know they see it, and I'd rather it gets balanced out, or at least people will. I don't know. I don't even know what the outcome of it is. You know what I mean? But
Yeah,
for some reason, it feels like the right thing to do.
yeah, but do you not think that McTominay is a great example of because for ages we had this McFred thing, which kind of demeaned both of them equally to a certain extent, because it sort of labelled them both as being of a lower standard, where in fact I think both of them were underrated in different ways. And I'm glad that Scott McTominay left, because I think there were certain reasons why things weren't working at United
Yeah.
as well as they could. They did to a certain extent. He scored a lot of goals. He contributed in some ways, but I don't think it was quite right in terms of the role that United had him for. But I'm so glad that he's flourishing in Napoli, because that suits him. And again, it goes back to that thing of like, just because it's not working at a particular club, it doesn't mean that
Yes.
that
Yeah.
they're a busted flush or they're a bad player. It's just the whole dynamic is wrong, isn't it?
Yeah. Exactly. And McTominay, I think, is one where I found in myself, as well, the same kind of issue where, in the past, he was a player where, it was one I myself felt like I learned from, that I went way too hard on him publicly, on things on Twitter. I tweet like, "Oh, this guy's shit," and things like that. And that was one where I realized by the end of it, I had added to this type of thing, and I didn't like it. I wasn't happy with it. But it showed, like, when he left and was successful, this point of, yeah, it's okay to say maybe he's not the right guy for United, but it doesn't mean he's a bad footballer. It doesn't mean he's a shit player. It doesn't mean he's crap. It doesn't mean he's a bad guy. It doesn't mean, and it's like, okay, so it's the same thing of, like, being able to balance, like, sometimes it's just not the right place at the right time. And I take Rashford as this example, as a big one for this, right? Because it tends to go both ways very broadly in the way that fans talk about him and view him, and the criticism versus the praise, where people say best footballer, can't be, should be at United, can't believe he's gone. And I realized, in looking at it, and I've taken kind of the stance of, like, well, maybe it's just the right time for him to be somewhere else. And it doesn't have to be he's shit or he's amazing, and we don't have to do these crazy swings. And it's just like, it's the best thing for him to be at a different club, to do it, a different circumstance, a different position, and maybe he can thrive there. And that doesn't mean he's wrong. It doesn't mean United's wrong. It doesn't mean any of that. And McTominay was a good, I think, learning experience for me too, in that one, where over the last 18 months, I've tried very much to calm down myself, and try and help on that front, to say maybe we just don't, be so hard on the players. And if it doesn't work, just say, it's like with Rasmus right now. Saying, I think he could have a good career somewhere else. Maybe it's not at United and it hasn't worked out, but he could have a good career somewhere else. And that might work.
Yeah.
It might be the right way to look at it like that,
Yeah. I completely agree, but it's also that thing about environment is so important because, first of all, you mentioned Rashford. Like I love Rashford. Like I will always love Rashford, and it's almost become this thing that's dismissed. When you mention sort of like the career he's had at United and the goals he scored and how that compares to other players at his age, and also the things he did societally for society, and in terms of like forcing the government to feed kids, essentially, that almost gets sort of dismissed. It's like, okay, he did that, but that's a big fucking thing he did. Like that's a measure of the man, and if he does nothing else in his life ever again, he's done a big thing for people who needed it. But the thing with him, or the thing with other players, is we don't always know the 360 situation. We don't know if the reason he's unhappy at a club or he's unsettled at a club might be the club. It might be stuff outside the club. It might be other things. And sometimes, as with all of us, it's good to just change environment, and that can be something that we're not aware of and we shouldn't be aware of.
Yeah, I would completely agree. I just completely agree with all of that. And it's like we need a bit of an evolution in the fan culture and player interaction and how we feel about all of that. And it's hard to see that happening because it's had these huge swings, I think, where we've went through things like big swings of like player FC to big swings of anti-player FC, and the truth is probably somewhere in the middle. You know what I mean?
It's also a player like Garnacho.
Yep.
Whatever you think of him and his behavior and all of that, there is obviously he has to take ownership for his own sort of attitude or behaviors and all that business. But even if those behaviors are wrong, even if his attitude isn't quite right, I do kind of feel as if the club have to take some responsibility about that, because if you indulge a player, if you, in their most formative years, give them a prestige and give them an importance that can spoil them in some way, or sort of like feed their ego in some way, like it's the club's fault as well.
Yeah, it is. It is absolutely true. It is like it is like that. There's a right way of doing things, because these young players, you take them, and Garnacho in his present being someone I have been critical of, in most part because a lot of the stuff he's done has been public. And that's where I'm like, well, if you're going to put it in public, it's more fair game to go a bit heavy on that and say you really cannot be doing that as another public person. But at the same time, he's like, this is a kid where he comes in, throw him up front, Ronaldo, the pictures, the next CR7, to give him plays every game, doing all of this. You're handing these people tons of money. And what do you think is going to happen to a young brain, to a young forming mind? Whoever, there's obviously some people can handle it and some people can't. Some people it gets to their head. Some people they can, and a lot of that is about the people around them. A lot of that is the people who are, in their space. But a lot of, genetics, it doesn't matter. There's so many different things that can go into it. Some people can handle it and some people can't. And, and the club have to certainly, I hope, do better at things like that with players like Garnacho. And so I look at like Kobbie Mainoo, for example, and I'm taking that as a one where I look at it and say, it's okay right now for him to be on the quiet, not thrust into the spotlight. He has to be the big thing today. Maybe it'll work out better. And it is funny though, because then you get the clamor of like, why isn't he playing every game? Why isn't he the face of the club and all that? But haven't we seen that might not always work? That might not be the best thing. And we may not have the dressing room, the locker room, whatever, to manage these egos yet and keep people under control. Like in the days past, if you imagine it like a young Ronaldo, coming into this team versus the team back then with the experience, the leadership, everything that was in place to keep things calm, to keep things under control. You know what I mean? So, yeah, uh, the club have a responsibility in this that I hope they do better, and so do the manager. You know, the manager to keep those egos in check, to keep the young players from getting out of control, and manage them a bit better. And that is something I hope the club do because they share a lot of responsibility for this. To be clear, like a lot of the things that happen, the club have a big part in it. It's not like it's all on the fans, you know, criticism and things like that. There's a lot of things that have happened with all parties that have resulted in so much heat being on players and things being so difficult and so many failures and things like that over the years.
Yeah, and it's also related to that. It's a case of even when a new manager comes in, like Amarim, it's so hard to turn that tanker. If there's an environment in place and there's like behaviors in place, you can't change that overnight. You can't, especially when there's a large group of players involved and a large group of egos involved. It's hard to change that mentality straight away. It does take time. It takes a turnover of players and new players that haven't been sort of infected by by the bad habits, but also it takes a gradual change in people's views and attitude, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does, and it's gonna take that, and it's changed. I hope some of it is like just as well because United have not been successful for so long. It's just natural that the frustration boils out publicly towards players and people and all of that. I think if United are winning, everyone will get more love, and when United are losing, everyone's going to get. And it's hard to defeat that. It's hard to say to people, "Well, be happy and praise and calm down the criticism when United are losing every game." You know what I mean? And so it's part of it is United have to be more successful at the end of it. If we just accept the reality of human behavior and where people are going to be, it's like the reward centers need to kick in a little bit here for people to feel happy when they watch United and not find some way to channel their frustration, you know, out on what they see as and what we all see as frustration week in and week out. It's hard, man. It's hard. And when I watch games, there's no doubt during the games and things like that, when the emotions are a little more wild, I lose it. I lose it as well. You know, calming down.
You properly lost it. I felt after the Europa League final.
Oh, I did. I absolutely did.
Like,
yeah.
like I was thinking, like, get up, man. It's not that bad. You're like,
I lost it. I lost it.
You were basically writing United's obituary, saying it's the end of United, as you know it.
I was, yeah,
but
that was a moment for me.
But you got it out of your system, and then you moved on, didn't you?
Exactly, and that's what I try to do. I get it out, calm down, and then I can be good from then on. And yeah, see.
How has your attitude towards Amarim changed, or has it not changed? Are you impressed by the way he's going about things?
I am. I don't think my perspective on him has changed. I think that this is, you know, I maybe hoped when he came in that it would be quicker, that things would happen a little bit faster, that he was a little more miracle than I expected. But given the scope of United and the difference, obviously it was more likely it was going to take more time. I'm almost encouraged by just how bad it went, in a sense, once I got through all the noise, because to me it meant he was really sticking to what he knows how to do. And when I got out on the US tour, it was like a revival of the faith I had in him. The building of the team, which has always been his thing, his man management, his ability to bring this team together, to get into the minds of the players, to get them on the same page, to create a unit that works together. That's something, you know. That's something. And I think he's done that, and I think he's successfully. Well, we'll see how that works in the season, obviously, but he's done it, you know, to a degree, and it looks like he's getting there with the players. It looks like he's getting through to everybody. It looks like he's doing what he always set out to do. And so my faith is there. Now we got to win some games. Obviously, I think he'll feel the same way, and we all feel the same way. But yeah, I think what I've seen so far and in the preseason and where we're at, my faith is maybe when it wobbled after that Europa final, which it certainly did. No doubt about that, has been kind of restored, and I think he's on the track to do what he did at Sporting. I think he's going to be extremely successful. I think it's funny seeing the difference between him talking about leaving months ago to now talking about wanting to be here 20 years, you know? And I think that tells you he's a man who has a lot of faith in his capabilities, but also, he does not want to fail. If he thinks he's failing, he'll leave. And he really will. That's the crazy part. I think there's managers who've threatened that, but they won't. He would leave if he thinks he's not the guy, and he genuinely would. But I think he's become more certain than ever in the months over the summer that he is the guy and he'll get us there. And I tend to believe him.
Yeah, I think I completely understand this sort of thought process that basically it was, in a way, it was good to get him when we did, because he got a chance to see United at the worst, and he had all that time to analyze the team and see how they did and find out who the people he can trust and people who can't trust were. My biggest concern were things outside of his control. So this idea of like the credit any United manager starts off with the fans, that can disappear really quickly. So I was worried about how that credit and that sort of like space that the fans give him could dwindle. But also I was concerned about the dynamic with the players, because we've seen in the past where, and again, like not to disrespect the players, but I think it's human nature. It's almost like like in school when you've got a bunch of kids and there's a substitute teacher, and if the teacher's got authority, that's fine. As soon as the kids get a hint for like an idea that the teacher's lost authority, or they're not going to be there very long, or they're just a substitute teacher, that's when they start to take the piss. That's when they start to undermine the teacher, and then the teacher's lost. And my concern was whether essentially Amorim would be undermined by how bad things have gone. But I think he's rolled that, and I think whatever you want to say about Ineos and like the execs and the exec team at United, one thing they do deserve credit for is they have been quite unequivocal about the fact that he's our guy. He's not going anywhere. He's our guy. We saw certain things we were really happy with in the last season. Even though we finished 15th, there was things that were improved and things that needed to happen that Amorim was brave enough to do.
Yeah, exactly that. I mean, it is completely and utterly true that they're backing him. I mean, it is funny because even as we're recording this, in the insanity that happens, they're buying all these players, spending 200 million, and then as we're recording this, they're making a move for Baluba from Brighton. 300 million potentially invested in this manager after finishing 15th. Yeah. I don't think there's ever been, like there's words, you know what I mean? But when you put that much money, and you put that much money in, you're saying he's the guy. And when you've done that at the same time as letting him kick out 5 players from your team that you've made no money on so far, you're really saying this is it. And I do think that stamp of authority from above, that he's the guy, matters a lot. One of the worst moments I think that has happened at United since Sir Alex left there was a summer before I even started all of this, or was just getting into it, under Jose Mourinho, where Martial and Pogba were having rifts with him, and he was the manager, and his agent, Martial's agent, was literally saying like he's going to outlast him, and you had these things going on. And they went with the players instead of the manager. And it was completely broken from that point in time. Now, one could argue whether Jose was the right guy, all that. It doesn't particularly matter. The point was what you did there in that decision set the club back years. It gave, you look at the power that the players then had from that moment on in the dressing room to influence things. Martial only left last year. Like it took a long time for Anthony Martial to leave United, and he got a new contract after that, I think. And it's like, what precedent that sets versus what we're seeing today is very different. So it's like you say there too, like in fixing the dressing room, it's been done so badly over the years, and having a real leader in there and getting the backing of the serious backing in that respect should genuinely help quite a lot in creating this whole thing, this whole, I don't know what you call it, this team in the way that it should, in a way that we haven't for a long time, because we've been such a player driven, club, commercially looking at, well, what player is going to drive the most interest, and the club's been looking at it that way for such a long time, that naturally this was sort of the end of it.
Yeah. Are you surprised at the sort of turbo boost this close season in terms of, because you've always maintained that there's been a timeline, or there's been a line of this is what we want over the next 2 years, and this is the general order. It can change, but this is the general order that we want the players. It seems to have really truncated for some reason, and it feels as if it's there's been a turbo boost in the last 3 weeks, 2 weeks.
Yeah, it does feel that way. I have like a slight wonder what the hell happened over in the States, because they came over here to meet with people as well, investors, things like that too. And I just wonder, is there something in the pipeline that we don't know about that like is going to completely change the financial picture of United? Because it really has turbo boosted. Now, I can understand their impetus to say, well, we're just trying to create like change the way United are viewed in the market, get deals done in a proper sequence. Obviously, they did get a lot of heat for some of the decisions made over the last year around the club and the redundancies and things like that. But when I looked at their Q3 results that came out the last time, I was almost unbelievably shocked by how good it was. Like the financial turnaround at United, maybe we should have predicted this, because they were in a situation where they'd saved something in the order of 80 million plus per year in expenses. Well, when you look at it on a transfer front, that essentially gives you the money to do something incredible in the market if you're reinvesting that in. And I think what's always been clear and important is that they were never going to save money to enrich themselves, the current ownership, the new ownership, let's talk Ineos, the controlling football side ownership, let's call it, right? They were never going to do that to take money out of the club. It was always going to be reinvested. So if they save 80 million and that allows them to spend 80 million in cash, which is the equivalent of hundreds of millions in transfers, I guess we should have predicted that they were going to do it. But I am surprised. I'm absolutely shocked. It's like they've figured out something. I'm wondering, like, did they find oil under Carrington while they were rebuilding it? What happened that suddenly means they're ready to go? They've got the new place on Friday. I mean, we're seeing something that is quite incredible. I don't know what to believe about it, to be honest, but I'm shocked. I've been trying to play it almost too careful, at times, because I've been like, there's things I hear and it's like unbelievable. I spoke about Baliba on a video like a week ago or something, saying I'd be surprised if we don't make a move for him by next summer. The fact that we're doing it now blows my mind. I didn't believe they would do it now, even if I knew they really wanted him. I just didn't believe it. So I'm kind of blown away by how quickly they're pushing all of this, but maybe we shouldn't be. I mean, the ambition to be the best club in the world, again, they appear to be serious about it.
I mean, speaking of the financial side of things, one issue that is obviously it's not best pleased the fans, but for very valid reasons, and that's the downsizing of the club in terms of employees and redundancies, and that's certainly something I've been very sort of vocal in my sort of like having issues with, and I think you also sort of you're very appreciative of like these are human beings and these are people who lost their job, but and again, this is in no way me condoning that or sort of like making excuses for that. However, I've worked in large organizations, I've worked in smaller organizations, and I'm sure you have too. Part of that blame I think needs to go to the ownership that have that basically bloated
Yeah.
a sort of an organization. And I always, anytime anyone loses their job, there's obviously sadness there, but there's also a case of what are the reasons behind them losing that job. And if it's a case of your organization got them on board in an unsustainable way or in a way that's not needed, then it's there's almost a level of cruelty for you having done that, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it is right. Like what you're saying is correct, because I look at a situation like if I was looking at a regular business and they drove you look at, I mean, like a huge old examples, dating myself, and talk about like Enron, and you had like these companies that built these bloated things on false pretenses and shaky ground, and then you had all these people with money invested, all these people with jobs in there, all these people with this, and they all lose their jobs, right? Well, the Glazer family, in putting the United together the way that they did, in hiring, and bloating it to the point where it was no longer financially viable, created this situation. That's just the truth of it. And it's like, if the business, if United go under, if United fail, if United get relegated, you're all losing your jobs anyway. So it feels terrible. It's not your fault. 400 people who lost their jobs. It's make it very clear. It's not their fault. It's not they're not the reason United are in the pit that they're in. They lost their jobs as a consequence of, it shouldn't have happened in the first place. It's unfortunate that that happened, that they, that the club was run in such a way that bloated this whole thing and put it there. And it sucks, man. It's like there's no win, but sometimes that's how it is, right? It's like fixing horrible things have happened. There's going to be pain along the way. There's going to be more people that get hurt along the way. There's going to be casualties of that. It doesn't mean that people fixing it are to blame. It just sucks. And sometimes it's okay to look at something and say it sucks, but it's not, it's like the medicine. It's like I use the example of like the COVID lockdowns and things like that have happened. Well, it's not the lockdowns and the response to the disease, which sucked and made life hard for a lot of people. It hurt a lot of businesses. It hurt a lot of people's livelihoods. And a lot of people take that and say, government screwed us over. With, people can have that response, right? That the lockdowns, that the things that happened, that the response to this disease spreading, the virus spreading, whatever, were the reason for their suffering. It wasn't. It was the virus spreading, and it was like we had to do this, but it can feel easy to blame in that respect. And it's like, it sucks. We all wish they didn't have to do that, but they did. And it's kind of like that, it's like, it's just United was infected and they had to treat the illness. And there's a lot of unfortunate byproducts of that and casualties of that. And nobody wins in that case, but at the end of it, it's also necessary.
Yeah, and it also points to this idea that people talk about how much money rival fans especially will say, "Oh, United have spent X amount, hundreds of millions of pounds, and they're still in the shit." So the Glazers essentially did invest, which obviously we know they didn't. We know it was all on the never never. However, even that money that's spent. First of all, that's true. Loads of money was spent, and we're still in the shit. So people are correct. But it kind of that was always in my mind whenever there was talk about Sheikh Jassim, and whether he exists or not. This idea of the most, even if assuming he was real. I mean, in terms of the money being real, and it being a legitimate, real sort of like potential buy, which again I have massive doubts on. It's not always a case of the most money equals the most chance of success, because you can have another situation where it's just a zombie sort of like leadership that are just
Yeah.
letting it sort of float along
Yeah.
without any
Well,
plan.
right. 2014 to 2021, I think United spent more than anybody else in England on transfers. They spent more than anybody else in England. That's not the Glazers' money, to be clear. Again, like
Yeah.
you said, they didn't invest. That's United's money. But they still spent the most money on transfers on football of anyone. And we had nothing to show for it. So it's a balance of money and running things the right way and doing things with expertise. And that's the important part, that it has to be both. It's always got to be both. They all have to go into it.
Yeah. Going more granular into how the sort of team is developing. Are you happy with the way things are being built? Are you happy with the signings that have come in? Do you see the logic in each side? Because I'll be honest, Sesko's the first one where I thought, oh, I'm not sure about this one.
Oh yeah, same here. I mean, exactly the same here. Sheshko was the first one where I said, where I 100% will say, I really hope I'm wrong, that I have major doubts on it. And that was my kind of opinion in general, is that I was worried about United taking the punt on any young striker in this window, given what we've seen, given what's happened. I'm not saying Sheshko is Rasmus Højlund. I'm not trying to do like the comparisons like they're the same player and all of that, but just the general gist of like how I'm yet to believe we've provided the platform for young players to do incredible at United and to come in, hit the ground running from other leagues and just take off. And then you factor in, you got to lead the line, young age, not necessarily proven, and it's a 90 million euros deal or 70. These pressures get to people. You take the examples we spoke about of Harry Maguire, 80 million pounds. That was a giant weight around his neck for years. Still to this day, if he was 40 million, he would be viewed differently by fans. It hurts. It hurts. And it's like, I don't know. I'm not in the mental state of the players to know whether they can handle it or not. There's people who can handle that probably bask in that, and they can, like, it'll drive them. And there's people where it's going to weigh really, really heavy. I don't know enough about them. It's hard to know before they deal with that, how someone's going to respond to that kind of thing mentally. But at the same time, I've always said I'll trust the guys who are the experts on this. If they're that sure and they're willing to do it and they're all in agreement, so be it. Because I like them. I think they know what they're doing. So it's one of those ones where I hope I'm wrong. And I think that's my kind of stance on it. I like when I'm wrong and it works out positively, because I've been positive on things and wrong and it works out negatively. That sucks. I'll be really happy if I'm wrong on this. I'm really happy. I get as well the logic with Cunha and Bumo. I think they're sure things, adding that you can bear to risk a little bit of a less sure thing. Then you add in what, again, what we've talked about now. If they're going for a sure thing in Balaba, somebody who's in the league already, well, okay, I can handle that. 3 big, solid, sure things and 1 risk. I think that's a good balance. It makes more sense in the more you look at the overall picture, it starts to make a bit more sense altogether.
Yeah, I think. I mean, I completely agree. I so want it to be a success. I think the big. There's 2 things for me. First of all, the funny thing is that I find Sesko really, really exciting as a signing, and I find someone like Ollie Watkins less exciting. But that's why I want Ollie Watkins. I don't want like this risk. I want. It's almost as if I want above average rather than either brilliant or shit. So there's that. So it's almost a case of the more exciting he is, that makes me more nervous.
Yeah, give me the boring, sure thing. That's kind of my feeling this summer. Yeah, exactly. I'm with you. That's where I was at. But I'm so risk averse, and it's I'm not used to being that way either myself.
But I do think it's certain positions like goalkeeper and centre forward. I just want somebody reliable.
Yeah. Like just come in and like a goalkeeper. Don't give me like, oh, this guy is crazy, could be the best player. No.
Yeah.
I want a guy. I don't want to hear about the
No,
goalkeeper. I don't
no.
want to think about the goalkeeper. Just give
Yeah,
me boring as hell in that position. I don't want excitement out of my goalkeeper. I've got
yeah.
enough excitement from Onana. Give me boring. But
That's it.
yeah,
That's it.
I'm
Yeah.
with you.
And the other thing is, and I think it's because we've been burned, and I don't mean Hoyland. What
Yeah,
I mean,
it's just a
what
lot
I,
more than
yeah, yeah. But it's a case of there was a period of time at United where it felt as if every level was somebody learning on the job. As in, you had like Richard Arnold, you had Murto, you had Woodward, at every single level. It felt as if people were doing jobs that they were learning on the job, and that was a recipe for disaster. It doesn't matter how good or bad they would be, if they're all learning a job, like it's not going to work. And in that sense, I appreciate that Sesko's really exciting and got so much potential and all the tools, but I just want somebody to have done it to a certain level where they're at, and then almost see if they can replicate that at United. Where I almost feel with Sesko, it's like, okay, you can blame the way Leipzig play, you can blame sort of like the formation is in, or the balls he was given, or anything, but I just want a situation where a striker has done it at a lower level and has done exactly what we'd love him to do, and then it's
Yeah.
a case of, can they do it on a bigger stage? Can they do it with more pressure? So that's essentially like something that I prefer. But I suppose it's a difficult market, isn't it?
Yeah, it is a very difficult market,
Yeah.
and I get as well, like, not overpaying for older players and having the situation. One of the things I did do a video on this back in like March, where I was talking about their theory of like how they build the squad, which is that one of the things they really didn't like, where they feel we've gone backwards, is a lot of our best players are on the decline. Casemiro, even Bruno and such, like age-wise, Maguire, Shaw, like on the decline for different reasons. So you're always racing to keep up, but you're not at a title-winning level yet anyway. So you're behind it. And they wanted a squad full of players on the rise, so you can actually improve season by season by season by season. With what we're doing this year, in theory, huge steps in that direction, moving towards a bunch of players that are probably all getting better, certainly not getting worse, but should be getting better. So I get that in the long term, it makes sense. I hope it works, obviously,
Yeah.
but and it does make sense. I do get it.
Yeah, and I suppose I do contradict myself, because my mind immediately went to, oh, I can understand Liverpool taking a risk, because they can take a risk, because
Yeah,
if Ekitike doesn't work out, or needs
they
some
already
time.
won a title with the same
Yeah,
team.
yeah.
Like,
Exactly, they've got Mo Salah, they've got the players who are
yeah,
already scoring the goals. But then I thought to myself, well, actually, we do have those players now. We've got Mbumo, we've got Cunha, who will take that load off him if he does need more time, or if like he doesn't score goals immediately, and
yeah,
they do. That
we do.
that is okay.
Yeah,
So
it's true.
yeah.
It's true.
Yeah. Going back, because I can sort of sense that your phone's going mad, and
Oh, it's gone nuts. It's gone nuts. And I don't mean to be distracted either. I'm trying to
no,
make
no,
sure.
no,
Yeah,
no, no,
it's
totally.
crazy. Yeah.
But I appreciate we've been talking about. So I'll go back to where I started in terms of like the summer tour, and maybe more about you. Was there a period of time where you felt that the traditional media and people who worked um, for the traditional media as trained journalists sort of were suspicious of what you did and people that you did, and do you feel that that's changing now?
Yeah. I mean, I don't want to compare because it is hilarious. We've got David Ornstein today crediting Indy Kyla with a breaking story. All right. No, no, but which is the most nuts timeline if you want a demonstration of how media is changing.
Yeah,
It's great, kind of crazy. But no, exactly that. I think a lot of people mistrusted, I never wanted to look at it in myself as like a fan channel, because when it first was working on this and the community was building, fan channel was like a shit word. Like, people did not. There's some notable examples of why people felt that way, and you didn't necessarily want to be associated with that. Now there's a lot of fan channels that have moved more into being genuine media people, and it's like going to the preseason and being a part. We're media. We're part of the media now, and it's definitely the gap in the relationships between traditional and all of that, and the club and all of that, have changed dramatically. And there's so much overlap now in that respect, and I think it's just a natural recourse of what people want. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? People are not reading newspapers. And it's unfortunate again because it's like an industry that's struggling in that respect. You've seen like the layoffs at Sky and these things happening. This stuff happens in these industries, but people want someone to hang out. I mean, it's sort of today's content world, right? It's like they're gonna watch someone on YouTube or they're gonna watch something on Netflix. They're gonna do this and that spills, of course, into the sports thing. And but it's definitely changed, and the gap, and I would say in the relationships between traditional media and fan media has changed a lot. And
Yeah.
I think that I can talk with any of the traditional media guys as a normal person. You know what I mean? And it's like it's not like who the hell are you? It's like they treat me fine and normal like everybody else does. And so certainly that has changed because I don't think it was like I think there's a big like dislike and mistrust of it as of a few years ago, and it's changed quite a lot. And I do credit some of the other guys in this, like the guys I've talked to at Paddock and United View, and these people who have built channels that are not just like outrage farming, you know what I mean,
Yeah.
and have built into real things where they actually work really hard to provide good stuff and solid content and interact with the media and interact with the club and have helped to kind of change maybe the perception of what channels are. And I think a lot of them have evolved themselves from old ways that they used to do content to now in kind of like we've talked about, less reactionary, more positive, more fact-based and things like that too.
But do you not think it works both ways? Because there almost seems to be like a morphing together where now it's almost like do you know there's that thing of like every famous musician wants to be an actor and every actor wants to be a famous musician. There's that thing of like you're saying how fan channels have changed and sort of with notable exceptions like they've evolved and become more mature. Whereas I do feel as if now it's a case of people in traditional media and trained journalists. They're very interested in YouTube now, and like,
oh yeah,
do you know what I mean?
They're all getting on board. I've
So
enjoyed Andy Mitten getting on there as one of like the last people, but he was asking me about it when we were out there, asking how it works and stuff, and it's like, but I do get it. You kind of want to gravitate to where the audience is, and frankly, the audience is moved closer to what fan channels are doing than what traditional music. I'm not saying they don't get their people. I mean, Ornstein and all these guys, they get tons of people following and watching them. But you look at, obviously, Fabrizio Romano is probably the exact center of fan channel and traditional media and is the biggest in the world. So he's however anybody might feel to him, you've got to give him huge credit in building probably the perfect platform for what people are wanting. He's right there.
Yeah. Well, it's also okay. I mean, in terms of fan channels and what you do and other people do, it's a case of what do you want out of it? Do you care about the club you're covering, or do you care about your level of sort of fame and everything? And sometimes I wonder. I try and get into the mind frame of certain individuals, and I kind of think, is it all about being the biggest and the most notorious because you lose? Is it worth losing all that respect? Is it worth losing all that sort of like kudos or are you happy to be the biggest if you've merely basically used the Fox News playbook and you're a negative force?
Yeah, so I agree with you. I agree. It's a question everybody's got to answer for themselves.
Yeah, wicked, man. Well, I enjoyed that.
Yeah, that was great. Good chat.
Yeah,
I appreciate it. Well, if you got no more questions, then we'll end it here. And I really do appreciate it.
Yeah, I'll let you answer some of those questions. Say some of those
crazy. Yeah, exactly. It's all good. But yes, thank you everybody. If you're watching us now, obviously go and follow. There you go. My good friend over here, Naz, on X at Bearded Genius, longtime United fan and local and all of that. And otherwise, make sure to like, comment, subscribe, turn your notifications on, and keep watching. And we'll see you later. Okay.